Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled New 6 GHz Spectrum, New Opportunity to Grow Your Business. 6 gig has been on the radar for quite some time now. Cambium Networks unveiled their 6 gig product, the EPMP 4600, back in 2022, and it was a true game changer. Operators were then able to utilize the entire 6 gig spectrum to deliver up to 4 gigs throughput per sector. They had things like low latency, fiber-like speeds, and no more interference. And it's also deployed in days rather than in months that it takes to roll out fiber. Since then, the FCC, as well as Industry Canada, have been making some licensing changes, and that's what we're here to discuss today. Today, we're joined by Bruce Collins, Jihad Ghabra, and Sakid Ahmed with Cambium Networks. They are the EPMP product experts, and they're here to fill us in on all the latest and greatest news and product updates as well. Please submit any questions that may come up in the chat window, and we will review them after the presentation. And we'll also be recording today's webinar and posting it later on for everyone to view. So, gentlemen, welcome to the discussion, and please take it away.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. Thanks everybody for joining, and thanks to the team over at ISP Supply. It's always great to work with you guys on getting the word out about these new products. So I'm going to jump right into it, but also, as Jonathan mentioned, there'll be plenty of time for questions and Q&A. So got a little panel here, and hope for you to ask any questions, and you'll walk away from this learning something about 6 gig and what's happening with EPMP. I always start with this just because sometimes if you go look at Cambium and you look at Cambium Networks webpage, you'll say, wow, you guys have a lot of products. And what we're going to focus on today is down here in the corner, 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz EPMP, and under our point to multi-point portfolio. So you'll see fiber there, you'll see licensed bands, unlicensed, 60 gig, and we're going to talk about today about 5 and 6 gigahertz in EPMP. We'll also talk a bit about how you can use the EPMP product as a point-to-point solution, which is kind of captured up here in the upper left under point-to-point. And then on the right is a whole set of enterprise products, both indoor and outdoor Wi-Fi access points and our enterprise switching products. So really encourage you to take a look at those on a different session. But today we're going to focus on point to multi-point. And of course, all of this is tied together through our CN Maestro management platform, which really is a nice solution to manage if you have especially if you have a mixture of fiber and wireless and point-to-point, point-to-multipoint, Wi-Fi, mix it all together. But we're going to focus today on EPMP. And many of you are either already deploying EPMP. We thank you for that. You might already be deploying Cambium, or you might be brand new to Cambium overall. So I'll give you a quick summary of where EPMP is at. It's been out for 10 years. This platform is on its 4th generation. So it is a very mature platform. You can see the tag there. We've deployed more than 3 million of these radios around the world. So it is a very mature platform that has been deployed in all parts of the world. I think today most of the group will be from the US and Canada, but if you're from outside of that, you can also ping us as well. The hallmarks of the platform are it's a high performance platform, and we've just really upped the game with the 4000 series. So you'll see speeds up to 4 gigabits per second in a sector. You'll see some technology enhancements with 8x8 MIMO. You'll see some wider channels and higher modulations. All those things work together to deliver higher performance, so that you can offer higher service plans to your customers if you're a WISP. We've also always had as a key attribute is scalability and interference tolerance. So this comes along with the beamforming, the synchronization. So being able to cost effectively build up both small networks and large networks and operate in the midst of interference has always been a key part of this. And then finally, the economic side of this. We'll talk about how 6 gigahertz and the new 5 gigahertz platform are really cost effective at entering the market, getting into those maybe areas you want to test the market on 6 gig, maybe those areas where you have a small subdivision that's kind of behind a mountain. Or if you want to put this up and do a traditional 4-sector tower, you can scale up to that as well. And it economically scales up and scales down, and you'll see that in some of the material we cover today. So one of the things I just clarify as we go into this is that with the 4000 series, there are 2 different sets of hardware. So think of it as a single set of software that runs the EPMP product line, but we have the 4500 series, which is 5 gigahertz, and the 4600 series, which is 6 gigahertz. And they're separate hardware, and Jihad will go through that and what the hardware modules are here in a little bit. But for those of you that are used to EPMP or you've deployed it in the past, what's the same if it started there over there on the right? It's the same air interface that you've know and love or are comfortable with. It has all those benefits about air fairness and the scheduler and the scalable and the TDD sync, which we just released a couple weeks ago. You can do point-to-point and point-to-multipoint. It works with all of our software tools, which we'll cover here towards the end. And it comes with that 3-year warranty. So all of that is the same. So if you're deploying EPMP today, or if you're interested in looking at it, know that it's built on a solid base. What's new is that it offers up to higher capacity, up to 4 gigabits per second with our 6 gig solution. You can offer gigabit per second packages to subscriber modules. I'll spend the next few slides talking about 6 gig and what that means for operators in North America with the AFC and new spectrum. And then we're also taking advantage of some of the newer technologies out here. So OFDMA, uplink and downlink MIMO, some QoS capabilities in the platform, and then I mentioned higher modulations, so you can see that. So really it brings a solid base, but lots of new technology layered on top of it. So let's talk about 6 gigahertz. 6 gigahertz is probably, I really do think it's the biggest chunk of unlicensed spectrum to come available, probably since the dawn of unlicensed fixed wireless. It's 850 megahertz of new spectrum in the US, and in Canada, they get a bonus, they get another 100 megs, so they get 950 megahertz. But here in the US, it's this Uni 5 band and the Uni 7 band up here in 6 gig. And you'll see that this, I'll repeat it again, the 4600 covers this new 6 gigahertz spectrum, and the 4500 covers that traditional 5 gigahertz spectrum. One of the things that's new about 6 gig is that it uses something called an AFC, or automated frequency coordination. And we'll talk about that on the next slide, how that works. I covered this for Canada as well. And let me come back to that previous slide, but here's how the AFC works. And I'll also give you a summary of where we're at with the FCC approvals and the Industry Canada approvals. In Industry Canada, they've already approved both our hardware and our AFC supplier, which is Qualcomm. So both of those have been approved. We've been testing the software, and we expect to turn that software on for Canada by posting the new version on our website here in the next couple of weeks. So Canada's pretty straightforward. You can start taking delivery of these radios, and you can start to put them on towers, and as soon as that new version of firmware comes up, you can go live. In the FCC, they're kind of a half a step behind. We have done all of our testing on the radios. So the radios have been tested in an approved FCC test lab. It's a third-party lab, but the FCC validates and approves these labs. Those radios have been tested. The test reports are done. What we're waiting for is the FCC to finalize the testing on the AFC and give that the approval. And then when they do that, they're going to say, okay, now submit all your test reports. And this is to operate both in what we call fixed mode as well as standard power mode. So we expect to be there first in line with all the test reports to cover all of the standard mode, fixed mode, everything you need. So I will take a little quick step back and talk about what does all that mean, and then you can kind of get it in the context. The way the AFC works is in 6 gigahertz only, there are a number of incumbent 6 gigahertz licensed microwave holders. So these are either, most of the time these days, these are industrial operators like oil and gas or freight rail companies. They might be some electric utilities still using 6 gigahertz licensed microwave. What the FCC has said is, let's open up that spectrum, that 850 megahertz of new spectrum, but at the same time protect those incumbent license holders. So we'll protect those guys that already bought a 10-year license on a licensed microwave link. We're going to protect them by drawing a little ring fence around them based on their GPS lat long. So what the AFC does is it says when the radio powers up, the radio is going to send a note across this flow chart. You can see it's going to send a request out to the AFC. The AFC is going to check the database, and it's going to reply back and say, here's the channels that you can use, and here's the power levels that you can use. And then in the lower left, you'll see the EPMP, the GUI screen that says, here's all the channels that are available in 6 gigahertz. And you can pick any one of these. This customer just chose the one in green here, but you can pick any of those channels. The AFC does not give you priority access to that channel. It doesn't give you exclusive access to that channel. It just says, here's some channels that can be used. And it's up to the operator to select the primary, the secondary channel, the AB channel reuse. All of that is the same as it ever has been in 5 gig. It's just you're working with the set of channels that are available at that location. After that initial power up, then every 24 hours, those radios will check in again and confirm that the same set of channels is available. We believe this is not going to be very dynamic. There's just not a lot of 6 gigahertz licensed microwave being installed these days. If anything, we're seeing a trend of people moving out of 6 gig and moving into 11 gig, which means that database may eventually start to even free up more over time. But the time will tell. We'll see how that goes. I think a couple other key points here is that if you're a network operator, what do you need to worry about with the AFC? So for one thing, it's very lightweight. It's not like if you're thinking this is like CBRS, it's not. It's very simple, much lighter weight. It just checks in once a day. If it misses a window, it gets several retries, and it can go for another 48 hours before it actually times out. So you have some built-in resilience in the protocol. Each radio does have to reach out to the internet, so it does have to reach the AFC server. And some customers will configure a proxy server on their own network so that they funnel everything out through the firewall. These are all HTTPS secure connections, and they're always originated from the radio. So there's no inbound originated connections, it's all outbound. So it's a pretty straightforward firewall rule. Some customers have looked at doing proxy servers, and we will eventually incorporate this into either sitting alongside CN Maestro on-prem or creating some instructions on how to set that up. The other nice thing is that we've included the cost of the AFC subscription into the radio. So I mentioned before, we're working with Qualcomm as our provider of AFC, and there are many different AFC vendors out there. I think at last count there was something like 14 or 12 or 14. We've worked with Qualcomm and we've integrated the cost of that into the radio. So when you buy the radio, you're not going to have to face any additional license fee or any ongoing expense. It's all built into the radio. If you're looking for more information on 6 gig, I encourage you to go to our website and search for the 6 gigahertz playbook, or you can take a quick snapshot of the QR code. I'll stop moving my mouse over it so your QR code will work. And I'd encourage you to take a look at this. It's kind of gives some of these diagrams I showed before. It gives a long FAQ type list, so we can kind of cover some of those questions, and you can look at this and share it within your organization. I talked about economics of this solution, and when we look at 6 gig, it is a clean spectrum. So largely this is going to be either greenfield. I'm going to go into areas that I've not provided wireless coverage before in the past, or I'm going to overlay existing 5 gigahertz networks so I can either offload some of those congested sectors into 6 gig. Maybe because I have a low noise floor, I can offer higher speed services. Like I could offer a 500 meg plan or even a 1 gig plan and serve some of those top talkers on a 6 gig network. And we see service providers doing a mix of all of those. And one of the benefits that you get with EPMP is that it really does scale down to, you can see here, even a light sector. I want to put 10 subs on a sector and serve a neighborhood. I can do that. Even if it's behind a mountain, I can do that because it's very cost effective. You can see the cost per home served, and that's taking the cost of the access point and the subscriber module hardware and dividing it across the 10 subs. But then you can just as well go up to those very dense sectors, put 100 or more on each sector, put 4 sectors on a tower, And now I'm serving a large number of customers, and my cost, of course, amortizes down to a pretty low number here. And when you look at some of the other products that are out there, the cost of that access point is quite prohibitive if you're trying to do a small sector, and you really have to count on where I'm going to put those large sectors if I'm going to invest in that higher cost access point. So that's kind of the quick summary on the economics. I'd love to get more feedback from you guys. If you ask, either you can always ping us directly or chime in here on the chat window how you're planning to use 6 gigahertz and how you see the economic model playing out. So I'd be curious to hear what your feedback is on that. Otherwise, the action here to take is 6 gigahertz is coming very quickly. It's like I said, Canada will be online here in the next couple of weeks. We expect the FCC sort of, I would say it's not, there's no specific timeline we can point to with the FCC. What they're going to do is take these test reports in, do their testing, post those test reports and those grants on their site, and then we'll be able to go live. So somewhere between the next sort of 4 to 6 to 8 weeks is kind of what we expect. But there's a lot of momentum, so that actually could move very quickly. Point being is you need to be planning now. If you're interested in moving into 6 gig, you ought to be looking at what my plan is for which hardware I'm going to deploy, what service plans I'm going to offer, what's my migration strategy if I'm going to move people off of 5 gig. And I'll just say that we've been testing this. Jonathan mentioned that we launched this back in 2022. So we did start shipping this almost 15 months ago. So it's been one of the most tested products that we've had. We have, I think there's actually up to about 130 WISPs have experimental licenses based on ePMP 4600. So that means 130 WISPs have had the option to test and look at the propagation of 6 gig, the speed and performance you can get out of this platform. So it's been going on for quite a while. Products available now. ISP Supplies has product, and they can get some to you. And they, if they run out, they can get more. But it is going to be a little bit of a land grab when this goes live. And then on the software side, we are still looking at supporting the AFC. Like I said on my dithering a little bit on when FCC is going to give the final grant, but it could be February or March. We are ready to go with the software. The latest commercial release is 5.6.0. This just released about 2.5 weeks ago. This incorporated TDD synchronization. So I'd encourage you, even if you're one of those 130 WISPs that are using this in experimental mode, make sure you upgrade to 5.6.0 and you'll see the benefit of scaling up to larger sectors. And then we also expect this to be in Link Planner here in the correct me if I'm wrong, Jihad, but I think by March we ought to see it in Link Planner, so you'll be able to do some planning there as well.
It's just a note, as you talk about Link Planner, customers should also go to our capacity planning tool on our ePMP website. That also gives you a good sense on capacity of a system.
Yeah, that's a good point. Where Link Planner will give you the availability of an individual link and the speed and the modulation. Sometimes you can do a quick sort of back of the envelope calculation with Capacity Planner, where I can say I want to put 20 subscribers or 50 subscribers on this access point, and you can see how that changes with the different channel sizes and everything else. So that's a good tool. That's also on the just the Cambium website. If you go to the ePMP section, you'll see that Capacity Planner. Yeah, do you want to take us through real quickly the hardware pieces or the modules that are associated with 6 gig?
Sure. Thank you, Bruce. Well, we've introduced, I think, 4 radios. The 2 that are on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side are access points. We have an ePMP 4600 and an ePMP 4600L. The 4600 is a 4x4 radio. It is 4096 QAM. It has capability to support bandwidth up to 160 megahertz. We've introduced that in all of the 6 gigahertz product line. The reason is we do have clean spectrum And in some instances of Canada, we have the whole spectrum, which is continuous. And possibility of using the 160 megahertz is really high. And the EPMP 4600L is a 2x2 access point, and it is 4096. It will probably give you capacity up to 2.5 gig. And both of the access points do have GPS receiver in them, but they will connect to a GPS antenna through a coax antenna. It's a puck that we actually ship with the product, and it is included in the box. From the subscriber modules, we have a high-end subscriber module, which is a 4600C. Both this one and actually the access points, they all have SFP+, and they are all IP67. And this particular subscriber module also can deliver capacity beyond 2 gigabits per second. And this is really useful if you have an application where you want point-to-point services and you want to do backhaul from one point to another. And the same thing, this has inside the box, it has a GPS puck, which is just an antenna that is connected via reverse polarity SMA. Finally, the subscriber module, which is 4625. This is the subscriber module we expect everybody to connect to an AP. This one will work for both, actually, all of the SKUs, whether it is FCC or IC Canada, it is the same SKU. So let's go back to subscriber module. It can do up to 1 gig. The limitation is the physical gig Ethernet that is actually on the box, because this one does not have an SFP connection. This is the only one of the 6 gigahertz family that can do max modulation at 1024. The rest are all 4096. This one does not come with a GPS receiver, but what we have designed the radio to accept a GPS puck through a USB interface. That GPS puck has to be ordered separately. And there are multiple reasons for that. Is the first anticipation that we did not anticipate the market, actually that the GPS might be required. We thought that we could provide just a location via a setting in the firmware. The other is for the raw market, they don't have a requirement for a GPS. However, for the FCC and IC, this particular GPS model has to be used with this particular radio, because there are FCC requirements that dictate that the GPS puck or the GPS that is being used with the radio has to be the same as tested with at the time of submitting the test results to the FCC. That's really it from these.
All right, great. Thanks, Jihad. And again, I think you covered it well. Just to reemphasize that the 2 access points. If you're familiar with EPMP 3000, this is a very similar form factor to the 3000. And just like the 3000, we had a 3000L. We also have the 4600L. So it's very similar. If you're comfortable with 3000, you'll recognize those devices. And then the 4600C is really, as Jihad mentioned, a really high performance radio. We see a lot of applications for point-to-point, again, unlicensed point-to-point in 6 gig, as well as if you're serving a real high-end enterprise customer with the 4600C. But the real bread and butter in this is going to be the 25, which is the traditional 25 dBi dish. So maybe comment on a couple.
We're also releasing part of this, or we actually released them already, is 2 antennas. One is a 4x4 MIMO sector antenna, which will be used with the 4600. This is a 4x4 sector antenna. The 3 dB beam width on this azimuth is 65 degrees. The elevation is about 5 degrees. This is about 3.5 kilograms. And this coverage is from, I think, 5.725 gig all the way to 7.125 gig. The other one is a 2x2 dish. This is a 25 dBi dish. It will accept a dish extender, and it will take it from 25 dBi to 28 dBi. The beam width in this is, whether it's vertical or azimuth, it's the same as 7 degrees as as we have seen from prior dishes that we have done in the past. And finally, this is again just to re-emphasize the USB GPS POC to be used with the 4625. We mention it over here as a bullet so that you guys are aware of the SKU.
All right. So maybe, Sakid, do you want to comment on some of these test results that we've seen, or even other customers that you've talked with on this, or I can cover it, but if you're there, maybe you can give a quick synopsis.
I am here, and I think the best way to describe everything you guys covered is that from a 6 gigahertz perspective, the software, as Bruce mentioned, is 5.6.0. This is what you want to be on. It does support GPS sync, but it also supports something called WLR mode, which is wireless long range. At this juncture, we are seeing customers with 6 gig SMs in the highest I've seen is 26, 28 SMs on an AP. And again, it's all contingent of that experimental license, and you must follow that. But fundamentally, with the lower density of SMs per the licenses granted, customers are seeing some pretty phenomenal performance. Having said that, as you scale up and add more subscribers, the higher channel bandwidth, the higher packages of 500 meg gigabit, there's still improvements being made on the software side. So we do have some scalability challenges we're working through, but stay very, very tuned as to what we're releasing, because the progress we're making is very fast, and you'll see some new software updates. But right now, with relatively smaller number of subscribers, customers are seeing some phenomenal results. So we're only going to build on top of that. So as a platform, as a solution, this has got tremendous potential. We've got a lot of tricks in the bag, and we're executing them very quickly. So bear with us. But in the meantime, feel free to get that license, deploy the equipment, get a feel for it, and continue testing.
All right, thanks, Sakid. I'm gonna let's cover 5 gigahertz as well. Well, let's start here. So as I mentioned at the top of the webinar, we have the 4600 series. That's what we've been talking about up till now. We also released the 5 gigahertz brother of the 4000 series, which is the 4500. So Jihad, why don't you walk us through the hardware that's associated with 5 gigahertz?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
So 5 gig, we, at the same time that we actually released the 4600, we incremented or actually built upon the existing 5 gig fourth generation hardware that we had. So about like 2 years ago, we had two products, Force 400C and Force 425. These were subscriber modules that are fourth generation. And the 400C is an IP67. Also, the 425 is environmental IP67 too, but it is with it comes with the dish. There's really not a lot of difference from a performance, with the exception of the 400C is connectorized. They both are 1024 QAM, and they both can do up to bandwidth of 80 megahertz. And we did not introduce 160 megahertz over here because of the because we knew that you will not be able to get 160 megahertz of free bandwidth in the 5 gigahertz band. So at the same time, with the 6 gig, we've introduced 3 access points and 2 subscriber modules. The access points is the EPMP 4500. This is an 8x8 access point with an 8x8 integrated sector antenna. Its beam width 3 dB azimuth beam width is about 65 degrees, and the elevation is about 5. The gain on it is about 16 to 18 dBi. So it really it's kind of a curved gain. The same particular hardware, which is the radio, it's the 4500C. It is exactly the same hardware as the 4500 without the antenna. This is a connectorized version of an 8x8. So we anticipate that this will be released actually in the next month. We already have built it. We have samples. We have it in beta test. But we have held on making it available till we figure out a solution from an antenna perspective. We have seen with our partners, we have seen 8x8 combined horns that to be used with the 4500C. We are as well experimenting with two sets of 4x4 pointing in different directions to be used by this. Or another use case is you might elect to have this radio and have a horn pointing in each sector, giving you a 360 degrees coverage. Both of these, the 4500C and the 4500, accepts 56 PoE volts and as well as DC volt in. So it is very flexible. The last access point is a 2x2 access point. It's a 4500L. This is a 1024 QAM. All of them are 1024 QAM for the 5 gig. And this guy, like Bruce said, it conforms to very similar to the 3000Ls and the 4600L that we did. So it has the same shape, the same form. From a subscriber modules, we only have two that we introduced in addition to the 400C and the 425. The two are, one is the 4525, which is targeting North America, and the 4525L, which is targeting ROW. So both of these have a dish associated with them, and the dish is at 25 dBi. They do not accept right now a dish extender. They are 1024 QAM, and they don't have SFP, but the others do have SFP. The reason is we don't anticipate that it will go beyond 1 gigabits per second. That's it, Bruce.
All right. Well, thanks, Jihad. That's a good rundown of these. Bottom line is this portfolio is pretty straightforward. If you want the full-blown access point, 4500, or its little brother, the 4500L, you've got that. And then the SM choice is pretty straightforward. It's 4525. We do offer the 400C and 425. These have been out for quite a while. The results people are getting from these as a point-to-point link is really outstanding. I mean, people are deploying these as point-to-points, the 400C and the 425. So if you haven't kicked the tires on this yet, I'd encourage you to take a look. It's really it really has outperformed just about anything that people have done a bake-off against. So in 5 gigahertz, this is kind of the go-to for if you want lots of capacity in a 5 gig point-to-point link.
One thing to mention, Bruce, the range extender will actually fit on the 420.
Okay. So you can get the connectorized version and get a little bit bigger dish, or you can we have an accessory that clips onto that dish and gives it a couple more dB of gain. One of the things that we're seeing with 5 gigahertz 4500 is it does have that 8x8, so it's got the more beam forming and narrower beams. It's got the OFDMA capability. So we're really seeing some really nice performance in near line of sight, non-line of sight. So something else that we're getting a lot of feedback on. Again, I don't know if you want to comment on anything you're hearing about on 5 gigahertz.
Well, I think 5 gigahertz is, if you think about the performance, if you look at our just social media posts from different customers, even in recent days, you've seen people compare the 5 gig to 2.4 solutions and seeing performances that are outdoing 2.4 performance. So from a non-line of sight interference performance perspective, 5 gig is showing some really good promise, and the results are there to show us that. So I think if you've looked at 5 gig and kind of given up on it, saying, hey, it's just too crowded, and you looked at other vendors that are considerably higher price, I think ePMP in the 5 gig 4K series gives you a whole nother set of tools to economically get some non-line of sight, high interference setups going and get some incredible performance. So that's kind of what we're seeing in the field. That's what a lot of customers are talking about. Again, those of you that are well into the ePMP line are also fully aware that we also have some work to do in the 5 gig to get the scalability stuff in the large SMs, which we're working very actively. And interesting enough, what Bruce is showing here is a customer that's running up to 47 SMs with a mix of 11N, 11AC, and AX SMs in backwards compatibility mode, which is a big, big thing we're working to deliver towards the end of March. The focus will be on 11AC. 11N may lag a little bit, but you'll get more out of that in the near future. But this is testimonial to the fact that we are making tremendous progress on compatibility as well as getting higher number of SM counts into the mix.
All right, thanks, Sakid. And I guess I'll give you the mic on this one too, because what really goes well with ePMP is QoE. You may want to comment on, I've just got one slide in here on QoE, but I think it'd be good for you to comment on what this can mean for WISP.
So while we talk a lot about wireless and Cambium fiber, a bunch of other products, QoE has been one of our secret tools that is doing magic for various customers. And this is a subscription solution. It's an appliance that you can bring yourself, or we can help you source it. Very cost-effective, highly performance boosting platform that can do things like TCP optimization, machine learning, congestion management, packet inspection, do rate plans using FQCodal. But anybody out there that has done anything with MikroTik switches to do rate limit plans, or looked at Preseam, for example, QoE is a fundamental game changer. It goes beyond showing you what the problem is, but actually fixing the problems. It is the most flexible engagement with Cambium in terms of being able to do a trial and see for yourself the before and after results. But fundamentally, it's a cheaper solution than anything in the market, and it actually is giving you better financial return than anything in the market in terms of bandwidth saved, customer calls reduced, overall customer satisfaction increase. We are super excited in what has been able to do with various customers, large and small. So if you haven't heard about QoE, please ping us, ping your ISP supply sales rep, and we'll be happy to work with you directly one-on-one and get QoE running in your network.
All right, great. Yeah, and it's real easy to trial as well. So you can just hook it up. There's not a lot of overhead to configure it or anything. So you can get it and get a taste of it pretty easily, pretty lightweight. CN Maestro, I mentioned at the top of the webinar, is our management platform that covers all of the different products in the portfolio. So whether you're mixing some point-to-point links, some ePMP, even some licensed microwave, even some indoor and outdoor Wi-Fi into your network, you can manage all of that from a single pane of glass with CN Maestro. So really encourage you to keep an eye on this. It continues to grow. The latest capabilities are things called assists, which are going to identify areas of concern in your network and then flag those up, and in some cases can take action to close those. So the initial version of assists is focused on security, things like, did I leave a default password somewhere? Did I have some security that maybe I turned on HTTP and I should have only used HTTPS? It'll identify those kinds of things. The next iteration of Assist is going to start to focus on RF and performance related issues. So it might make a recommendation on here's a better channel to use, or here's a better, in the case of a point-to-point link, maybe a different power level, something like that, that you could set up and automatically correct. So lots of things happening with Maestro. And then we talked about Link Planner at the top. If you're familiar with Cambium at all, I'm sure you've come across Link Planner. If you're new to Cambium, Link Planner is a free tool. It's now available in a cloud application, so you don't need to load an application on your desktop anymore. And this will support you in creating a point-to-point or a complex point-to-multipoint, or even a distributed network in the case of 60 gig. And it will give you all of those what-if scenarios around what's the availability of the link, what's the capacity of the link, what size antenna do I need to hit those parameters. So really a great tool that has evolved over many years, and it just keeps getting better. CN Heat is a planning tool that uses LiDAR-based data, and it provides a very precise view of coverage from each of my towers. And the value of this solution is twofold. One, I can specifically target customers that I know I can reach. So I don't go out and blanket the entire county area with marketing literature. I can go and target focus those customers I know that are within range and within line of sight of my tower. So I can reach that customer and I can target those particular set of customers. And then the second value is really achieving very high single truck roll installs. So my installer gets out there, he knows exactly where he's going to put that antenna, the radio, and he could move on. So we get very high success rate of installs and very few revisits for revisiting the plan. So great tool to take advantage of, which is CN Heat. Also, we have some trial capabilities on that as well. So that is a quick run through. I know we went a little bit long, huh? We're doing okay on time. I guess, Jonathan, I'll throw it back to you. Is there any questions that the group here posted on the chat, or that any of us can jump in on?
Sure. Yeah, quite a few did roll in, and I'll start up with this one here. Is MU-MIMO working, and what sort of performance gains can we expect with current firmware to fully baked firmware?
Ski, do you want to jump on that one, or I can?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So MU-MIMO is working in the WLR mode, which is the wireless long range mode. So there you can get up to double the performance to subscribers if you have the traffic and congestion. MU-MIMO is not yet supported in the GPS sync solution. The next thing you're going to get support for is going to be single user beamforming, which is a precursor to multi-user MIMO. And if you remember ePMP 3000, it is actually by itself a substantial feature, because with single user beamforming, we are directing the energy from both antennas to the single user and give you 3 dB of boost to that user. So that's something you're going to see in the next several weeks, a release coming out with single user beamforming, which should boost your modulations to a single subscriber by at least one step with single user beamforming. On the back of single user beamforming, you'll get multi-user MIMO and TDD in beta form. We'll cook it a little bit and release that as well. Again, all of this is in the next 4 to 8 week time frame, very fast pace of releases. But that's the short answer to your question about multi-user MIMO.
Yeah, and I'll just add on, maybe comment, the 4600 is a 4x4 and the 4500 is 8x8. So in again, in theory and on paper, you'll get more through that 8x8 capability versus the 4x4 that we traditionally got with the 3000. So, okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question that rolled in. Does Cambium plan on releasing smaller 4500 or 4600 client antennas, since today we only have the dish options? And if so, what is the ETA?
Yeah, so this is a commonly asked question. And the good news is we are working on it. As I mentioned, we have the dish antenna for both 6 gig and 5 gig. We are working, but I'll also step back and say one of the more popular form factors was the Force 180 and the Force 300-16. So that's sort of that horizontal form factor. So we are working on a version of that both in 5 gig and 6 gig. I don't see us releasing those this year, but we should be in perhaps some beta testing around the end of the year, but I would say that's an early 2025 deployment. In North America, the vast majority of networks use the dish, just because you're getting that a little bit extra, well, more than a little bit extra, you're getting some more range as well as a higher modulation. So in North America, we generally see people deploy the dish anyway, but we do recognize there are some applications where the smaller form factor would be beneficial. I'll just add that the other point on that is outside of North America, when you get into places like more cities in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and our Latin America teams, they do deploy that smaller form factor even more frequently than the dish. So it is kind of important to the overall portfolio. So it is a priority for us.
All right, thank you. Good to know. Another question: what is max EIRP going to be?
So in 6 gigahertz, the way the rules work, and this is a difference from how 5 gigahertz unlicensed works. In 6 gigahertz, it is a 36 dBm EIRP max, and that's in both directions. So these links in 6 gig are going to be symmetrical. And what I'm referring to, I wasn't really going to go into a deep dive on this, but I'll just comment on it because of the question. There, in 6 gigahertz, the FCC identifies both a fixed mode and then a standard mode. And we expect most WISPs to deploy these in what's referred to as the fixed mode, and that gives you that full 36 dBm EIRP in both directions. If you go to standard mode, that will drop down to 30 dBm in both directions. So that's the main reason we expect service providers to go to the full 36. And then 5 gigahertz works very similar to the way 5 gigahertz works today. So you have the 36 dBm at the access point, and then you have the ability to even go above that at the subscriber modules because of the way the FCC treats individual endpoints on a point-to-multipoint network.
Great, thank you. Another question that came in was, can I use a third-party GPS antenna?
I'll jump on that one as well. So Jihad explained this during going through the hardware that the 4625 subscriber module does not include a GPS antenna. And the background on that was we had really hoped that the FCC would either allow, and I keep picking on the FCC, I shouldn't pick on them, but anyway, that's what they said. They're going to, yeah, we had hoped that they would allow a sort of professional installer just enter the lat long into the GUI, which would save the whole industry a lot of money and pain of having to deploy these GPS receivers. But they really want to protect those incumbent license holders. So they said you must use an active GPS receiver. The second thing they said, and we hoped, was that they would allow an ecosystem of antennas so that different WISPs can use the one that they like to work with. They later said you must use the one that was certified with the radio. So you must, in order to be compliant with the FCC today, and when they launch 6 gig, you're going to have to use the Cambium certified GPS receiver with the Cambium certified radio. So that's the state of play today. 6 months from now, a year from now, I could see that changing. We have a couple options within Cambium. We could go get and recertify a third party, but today, to be compliant, you have to use the Cambium GPS receiver.
Okay, thank you. That's actually one of the questions we also received on how long they would have to have the GPS pucks at the client location. So thank you. Let's see here. Another question that came in is, what is the maximum distance that Cambium recommends for the standard 25 dBi dish?
Wow, that's a big it depends question. I don't know and again, we kind of have to split that between 5 gig and 6 gig. Right. With 5 gig, I'd expect to go just as far as you could with the 3000, and we have customers that have a deployment model of 5 miles is the max or 3 miles is the max. And then if you want to deliver 500 meg packages or really high speed services, you might want to cut that down a little bit further. And then on 6 gig, you've got the benefit of a low noise floor. You've got the downside of it's a symmetric 36 dBm EIRP, so you don't get quite the link budget that you get in 5 gig, but you've got the benefit of the clean spectrum, low noise floor. So I don't, Saki, do you have any rule of thumb that you would suggest on that?
Oh, sorry. It is one of the most, the biggest it depends question, right? Packages you want to offer, interference levels, range, all of that. So no, it's hard to add anything beyond what you just added, Bruce.
Okay, right. Okay.
Great, thank you. And we have time for one more question here before we wrap up. Will the FCC and Industry Canada equipment be the same, or will there be a US and an IC version radio?
Another good question. So the short answer is they're the same on 6 gig. On 5 gig, they'll still be separate. On 6 gig, it's the same. And the little bit deeper dive in why that's the case is that both Canada and the US/FCC territories will use an AFC. So the AFC will tell the radio what channels it can use and what power level. And so even though Canada has a wider set of channels available, that's all going to be managed between the AFC and the radio. So we can have the same radio serve both markets. So I don't know if you have any wisps that straddle the line between the borders, but the good news is it's the same for both sides.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that is all the time that we have today. Bruce, Jihad, and Sakid, excellent presentation and review. Thank you very much for putting it all together. And also a big thank you to everyone who attended today's webinar. Like Bruce mentioned, Cambium's 6 gig equipment, both ePMP 4600 and their new 6 gig PMP 450V are in stock and ready to ship at ISP Supplies. If anyone is interested in more information, or if you're ready to go 6 gig, please give us a shout. Our number here is 855-947-7776 or 855-WISP-PRO, or you can just shoot us an email at sales@ispsupplies.com and we'll be able to help you out. We will also be uploading this webinar to our YouTube channel and sharing it on social media. So please make sure to follow us and subscribe as well. This ends our webinar. Thank you very much to everybody, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Until next time.
All right, thanks, Jonathan.